Welcome into the League Down Under. It's the podcast that takes you inside the inner sanctum of our Dynasty League and it asks the question, which team are you going to side with? I'm your host, Ben, joined, as always, by my two co-hosts, Keeney and Hod. How you travelling, guys?
Good evening, gents. Wonderful to be on our 10th episode, if you don't mind, boys. It's popped up pretty quickly and there's going to have to be some big shoes to fill off the back of last week's guest, boys. Didn't he have a crack at everyone in the league that was possible to have a crack at? Hod, what do you think of the OJ's legal team on reflection?
It was a big show, but he's got tiny shoes, so let's not give him any kudos there. But we've been waiting a long time for this, haven't we, Ben?
Sure have.
Make the show all about us, and the listeners all love it.
Yeah, so you've had the luxury of listening into other members of the league over the previous 8 episodes. But tonight's going to be a little bit different. We're going to join forces, and Keeney had his own show because he's the big dog when it comes to the podcast. And Hod and I, we've been humble enough to go, you know what, let's just share the limelight tonight. Keeney,
that's not true.
We floated possibly to have all three of us in the same episode, and Keeney shut that down pretty quickly. I think, though, Keeney, before we get into my team and Hod's team, let's start with some league news.
Yeah. Every newsman in this city's laughing at us, and I don't like it.
And a few trades went down in the league only a couple of days ago here. In fact, one of our greatest sources of content, and that's the Bayside Executioners. And if you haven't checked out their Instagram page, I'll pop the handle up on the screen right now. If you are watching on YouTube, that's the League Down Under. If you're listening, and his is something like BaysideExecutioners.edl, something like that. Or you could just jump to YouTube and actually see the handle pop up. But here's what Scoot's takeaway was with the trades that went down that we're about to go through.
We're really struggling for content this week. I know. Let's do some crappy trades amongst ourselves so we have something to talk about. Yeah!
How's the strawberry blonde firing on Keeney?
It's strawberry blonde is generous. That's flaming red.
You got to watch the visuals there. So he's cartoonified us. I feel like it's done a pretty good job of me.
Pretty good.
Katie, it looks the least like you, it's fair to say, because it is flaming in the, and so is the hair. But I like the look of our studio and everything that it's got us sitting at there.
I thought it was spot on. I've never looked better, to be honest.
That'll be the goal, boys, to have a studio.
The neon sign. It's fair to say I watched that cartoon and thought, actually, a neon sign of the logo would be pretty sweet to have on the back wall.
It's inspiring, if nothing else, what the Bayside Executioners are doing on the gram. But he did tell me today to get this ready in time. He ran out of credits on his AI bot. That's how much work he's been putting into this. So we appreciate the content being sent in, and very much looking forward to him. He will be our last team review for this off-season.
So does that mean to get more credits, he's got to drop some of his winnings from last season? Is that how it works? You got to buy more, don't you, once you use them up?
Or he uses a lot of internet credits, but we won't dive into that.
I think so. And speaking of diving in, before we dive into the most recent trades, which that lovely piece of work from Scoot did reference, I think it's worth mentioning the power of the pod. And it's pretty evident because, boys, here's some stats I want to throw you. Get this, put this on for size, boys. In 2025, the league had 28 trades in total, and already in 2026 we're up to 21. We are firing on the trade cylinder, but also get this, boys, since the pod started, 19 of the 21 trades have happened. So there is no doubt the people are listening and we're getting the juices flowing and trades are coming off the back of it. So, boys, it's a big night for you two. You're the two that are looking for picks. I can sense something happening tonight.
Isn't it fitting that the vision of the pod to get the league activity is up and running, and the Dynasty Football Factory's post today, just one of his pillars was sitting there saying, "Do not trade." It's a shame that he didn't have his career record up on that recipe, because that would have painted a different picture to what he thinks.
Definitely. The recipe to success didn't include actual winnings in the recipe to success, but anyway, let's jump to the trade that kicked off the other night, and that is between the two of you here, and courtesy of Dynasty Daddy, who's just going to unpack that one for us. And if you aren't watching, the trade involved the Humdingers receiving Travis Hunter and Jake's 2027 third, and Keeney, who's now moved into contender status, which is pretty nice to see. Cortland Sutton, Hod's 2027 third, and Hod's 27 fourth. So I want to just throw it to the two of you. Who actually initiated this trade?
That would be myself. I think it's one of the most important parts to identify a trade that is at least appealing, if nothing else, to the other side first. And it was a very quick deal, I would say. I think it lasted one counter in all of 10 minutes, but I initiated it. I thought for someone who's looking to contend, or frisky, as it's the daddy suggests, but Travis Hunter, look, there's a lot of up in the air status with him. He probably didn't have a great offensive year last year. I may have traded for a defensive back, which would be an interesting review in a year's time. But he also has a ceiling that he could be the number one receiver at the Jags if it all works out. So I thought Cortland Sutton, he's finished as a wide receiver one the last 2 years, and it probably suits Keeney's roster a bit better than mine.
Yep. Keeney, was this one that you were happy to part with? Obviously, you spoke about him potentially being your biggest risk, which Hod's clearly identified there. But was it easy to part with Travis Hunter?
No, not initially. I mean, he's the type of player, and I think I said this to you, Hod, like he's the type of player that if it's not a deal that makes complete sense, then like I'm better off holding and seeing what he becomes. Like his value's relatively low at the moment based on what it was. They spent pick 3 on him in the draft, and these are probably all the reasons why Hod's targeting him. But at the same time, I've got to acknowledge that he is teetering on the edge, and if he has a really poor year this year, his value could be nowhere near what I got the other night. So Sutton's a meaningful piece. I am a fan of Waddle this year, but I also can see merit in Sutton, and there's a percentage chance that Sutton's a top, a wide receiver one again. I think it's more unlikely, but he's at very worst for my roster a really, really strong depth piece. And whilst there's some absolute psychological warfare on the part of Jake Pantis on this league, due to listening back to that episode last week, what he did say, which makes a lot of sense, is getting in the mind of your opposition when making a trade is the way to go about it. And that's what Hod's done. And I think when we discussed the one with me and you, Ben, that's the way trades get done. So some words of wisdom from our man, the OJ's legal team.
There were certainly many words, that's for sure. Some of them wisdom, I suppose, as well. We'll move on to our trade, which happened a little bit later in the day, and that saw Quinton Johnson, your 29 fourth, and Hod's 27 third that you just acquired that day, going to me, and you received Mike Evans, Tim's 29 second, and my 29 third. So, I can kick this off in that you came to me with Evans. In fact, I think we kind of spoke. We were talking a little bit about the makeup of our list a few weeks back, and I sort of was saying that obviously players like Evans are perfect players for me to sell to contenders, and then I was, talking to you about how you felt your list sort of contending, and and it serves me a little bit of purpose as well. I'll be honest that you do contend in your division because Papa, I hold his first. So if you do better than him in the division, it actually directly benefits me. So there's like a little bit of thinking in that one too. So you and I had sort of discussed Mike Evans a while back, hadn't really hashed out all the details. So yeah, you came to me with this option. There's a couple of little counters. And I think in the end, I replaced a second round pick and a few other little bits and pieces for Quinton Johnson because I just want to not just sit solely in picks. I think that's a bit of a dangerous game to play, and I wanted to diversify a bit. How was it to depart with someone like QJ?
Yeah, pretty similar scenario. Like there's he's probably more of a known asset than Hunter is, but again, the environment change in LA is no doubt a positive one for someone like him. And again, strong draft capital at the time. All the commentary out of the preseason has been really positive for him. Mike McDaniels, we know what he can do offensively as a coordinator. So he wasn't one I was, overly excited about getting rid of. But at the same time, I've got a high opinion of Evans this year. I think, he's consistently been where he's been for a long time, and I think his change of environment will be really good as well. So I'm expecting big things. But to go through this trade, straight away, again, we touched on it before, but straight away I went, well, I know what Ben wants. He wants picks in 2027, probably. So that's sort of how we started the negotiation. And then I think from there it evolved to you throwing in Quinton Johnson and me going, well, that's probably fair and reasonable. And then we worked around the picks at the end, and that's how the deal got done. So again, for a contender v a rebuilder, makes a lot of sense. And sometimes you got to try and bite the bullet to have a crack, and that's what I've done.
They're probably the easiest trades, right?
They are.
With a contender and a rebuilder.
Yeah.
It works for both sides. There's no threat for the competition, if you like, versus two contenders trying to play the chess game but also competing against each other. So, I mean, QJ, again, like the Chargers are every year, he's an off-season darling. He's all-world potential. He's been a wide receiver 3 the last 2 years, and you're just hoping for anything above that for your team moving forward. And you get Mike Evans, who is a proven wide receiver 1 to 2 at worst, and I think he's your 4th receiver, so a perfect contending depth piece. It's a good trade for both sides.
And there's a bit like what you said, Ben. It's there's some meta gameplay in this as well. With I own Tim's first, so I would like to finish above him and knock him into the lottery if I can. Now that's a big ask, but our division's very competitive, so that weighed on my mind. And then I was sort of thinking about where your team's at and how much do I really need to give up for someone that probably doesn't look great on your roster. But then we'll go into what you guys did next, and that probably flips the perception of where you think your team's at or what you're trying to do this year. So there's all these things that you're sort of thinking about as trades go down, but at the end of the day, it wasn't one that I wanted to stuff around with too much, and I just wanted to get the player in, as you said, Hod, build some depth in that position and see if we can have a crack.
Do you want to launch into, because then, spoiler alert, Hod and I traded probably, I don't know, less than maybe an hour or two later after our trade went down. Should we go through that now, or since we're reviewing both our teams, does it make more sense to touch on that when we're going through our lists?
No, I think it's a good time to go through it. Let's go through it now while we're there.
All right.
Because this one happened not too long. I traded for Mike Evans and Cortland Sutton and went to bed, and then I woke up the next morning and there was another one, and I didn't actually know about it until I woke up. And I've got to be honest, boys, it took me a while to get my head around what actually happened. So this one might be a tough one to explain on air. It's definitely a YouTube medium, this one, because there's a bit going on.
It's a bit to digest. Obviously, when 7 picks and 1 player exchanged, there's a fair bit going on. So Hod received my 27 first, my 27 third, and he got his 27 third back. So that pick just had a 3-way swap in the span of half a day. And in return, I got Scoot's 27 first, Matt's 27 first, Camo's 27 second, Jake's 27 third, and CJ Daniels, an unknown rookie wide receiver from the Rams, just thrown in as a little bit of a sprinkle on top. I suppose the main thing to look at here is that I gave up my my first round pick, which, looking at even Dynasty Daddy says I'm a fraud. and that is going to be in the lottery phase there to Hod for 2 contender first-round picks. So yes, it's a 2-for-1 swap, and the season hasn't panned out yet, but you probably look at that and go, why would I give up such a highly rated asset before the season's even started for 2 arguably back end of the first picks?
Yeah, well, this one, full transparency, was in the works for a while. I think I initiated it again. Obviously, my plan's been pretty strong, and we'll go into it a bit more detail soon. But I just thought it's another trade that works for both. And ironically, saying contenders and rebuilders are the easier trade, and now we've got 2 rebuilders. So this is a really interesting one. But for my strategy, owning 4 of the 6 lottery chances now, obviously that's a lot of water to go under the bridge. But that's the strategy I'm trying to deploy here, and acquiring Ben's, which I believe will be another lottery. That's now firmly puts me in a driver's seat to own 5 of the 6 potentially. If that doesn't come off, so be it. This is the plan that I'm trying to execute. So, and then on the flip side, I was putting my Park City Lions hat on and going, well, is Ben going to try and target a future draft like I have with this one? Or perhaps he can start the rebuild a bit quicker, and given how deep this draft is, giving him 2 firsts and then an early second, what I assume it will be, that could be quite enticing to him. But it was really CJ Daniels that got it over the line.
Yeah. But there's 3 things that stick out to me. It's clearly Ben, you're putting your first in, which we've discussed. CJ Daniels, is he better than Mumfield? That's probably one of the big questions that come out of this.
Big question.
And I know the DFF's probably cackling, thinking he's traded away the 4th wide receiver in LA, but really he might be the 3rd. And the 3rd thing, I suppose, is that I was interested in, they were all 2027 picks, which you touched on then. Was that a little bit of, diversifying your spread of draft picks, Hod, in this one? Or was there talk about spreading it out over a few years? Or I know Ben probably wants to target 2027, but I was surprised that you gave away all picks in that 1 year, given how high you are on the draft.
You're spot on. There is a little bit of regret doing my deep
buyer's
dive into
remorse.
all of them. Yeah, just a little bit because of how valuable those late firsts are going to be. But no, I put 3 scenarios on the table for Ben. 2028 was one of them, as I owned 4 firsts and 3 seconds. So if he wanted to target that draft, I was more than happy to part there. But Ben was pretty keen to get into this draft, and why wouldn't he be, with how strong it looks to be?
Well, yeah, and part of it as well, like where this sort of back and forth has gone on for a few weeks now, is that I did push to make it. I think you put 1 of Matt or Scoot's first round picks on the table, and then more in that sort of second round space. So I pushed for it to be more high up, so that obviously, I wouldn't typically do this in any other draft. This one, obviously, we still don't know who's going to declare, and I think we spoke about that last week. There's still a fair bit up in the air, but I think even worst case scenario, it still will bat pretty deep. And these are the kind of things where I've got to try and we'll get into it, I've got to try and turn my list over from players basically aging out where I get nothing for them to how do I suddenly replenish and have a startable lineup, because I don't know, DFF, you're right, I didn't use all my draft picks. In fact, I've drafted just 1 first round pick ever in the entire 7 years in this league, and that was Trevor Lawrence in the first rookie draft. So I have to do something a little bit different here. And it hurt because it's the first time that I've got my own first round pick back in a long time. And then I haven't even got through the off season before I gave it up again. So there was a fair bit of thinking that went into it.
You're spot on. A fair bit of thinking is putting it lightly from my side, because again, putting the Park City Lions hat on, as I was firmly in the driver's seat for this draft, and then Ben did decide to start tearing it down. That then got me a little bit jumpy. So I was putting the future cap on, thinking, well, he's got his first now, and there's a big asset on his roster in Lamar, and if anyone went after him, might be someone on this podcast who has the assets to do it, then Ben would have a really strong position in this draft where he might be less likely to want to part with his first.
Yep.
So for me, it was trying to get ahead of that and presenting an enticing enough deal to make him consider that, which I think he's achieved because I do have a bit of buyer's remorse.
I pushed a bit
Ben.
heavily, just to... Because I know that clearly you were going in for the high lottery potential on Jeremiah Smith, and I did crunch the numbers, and if you got my pick, it kind of dropped you into a 96% chance of getting that. So there was a huge part of you wanted to secure that before that panned out too. So I lent into that a fair bit in part of our negotiation, and I think it's worked out for both so far. Sorry, Kenny.
No, I had nothing meaningful to say other than, have we got the newest, smartest man in the league? The Humdingers is playing some 5D chess on the pod tonight. He is going Inception on me.
Well, yeah, no, you're spot on. I'm playing a serious game of Dynasty chess, but I still, as I said, a lot of water to go under the bridge, and this is all projecting where the teams finish, and Dynasty Daddy is a great asset to do that with contending rosters. So, look, it's the most fun I've had in a long time in Dynasty because it's a lot of future thinking and almost gambling a little bit, but it's a plan that I'm trying to execute.
Well, Ben, I think whilst there seems like some very amicable trading going on between the three of us, and whilst you two boys are, some of the smarter operators in our Dynasty League, I think there is a theme song that probably sums up where you're both at as we head into 2026.
What about me? It isn't fair. I've had enough. Now I want my share.
Oh, it's going to be a little bit of what about me for both of you, but it's definitely what about me tonight on the pod because you boys are just warming up. And I think it's time to have a look and delve deep into the rosters of the Park City Lions and the real Humdingers. So stay tuned because it will be some fascinating insights into, we've touched on
rosters.
rebuild and rebuild trades. They don't happen too often either.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. I'm really interested in both your mindsets going into this year. And I suppose the first question, if you want to bring up your rosters, Ben, and while you do, I think it's worth asking this question, and that is, are you boys looking forward to watching football on a Sunday morning in Australia or a Monday morning in Australia more often? You might be prioritising some college ball this year, mate.
I've already been. I've already been in the college archives for many, many months since I teared this down. Probably, I don't know when it was, halfway during last season.
The archives.
But I am definitely going to be watching a bit more footy on a Sunday for this upcoming season, it's very exciting.
And Ben, you've, as you said, only one first rounder in Dynasty history. It was the 101, and it was my original pick that I traded to you, by the way, jagging the 101 in the lottery. But and as we know, this could all change. Ben could go on a tear and just start trading his first rounders for players. And who knows? But let's assume you don't. Will you be tuning into college a bit more than you ever have?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been following it, but you're right. Having been in that contender spot where I haven't owned my first round picks, it's sort of like I'd have to give a fair bit up to even get back in for these players to be considered. But yeah, I've sort of loosely followed. I'm definitely going to be more intently watching along now. It's going to be, I think, a more enjoyable watch than stress watching all the players on my my current roster.
Yeah. And I think the way we do this tonight, boys, is you're both in a similar bracket in terms of unlikely, well, not contending this year, but both have high draft capital. So on Dynasty Daddy, our friends at Dynasty Daddy, we've got Hod with the number one amount of draft capital and Ben with number two. So if you're going to be rebuilding, that's probably a good looking place to start for both of you. But I do want to jump into, Ben, your roster quickly, if you want to bring that one up. And I think you touched on it earlier, Hod, but the most fascinating part about your team clearly is Lamar. And there's a world where you're not done yet in accumulating draft capital and some significant draft capital with this guy because it stands out like a sore thumb. He is worth a lot of draft picks in Dynasty for a contender or for anyone, and that's probably more to the point. He could be a cornerstone player for your team going forward as you rebuild. So there's no necessity to sell him. But what's your mindset with a player like Lamar, who is an absolute Dynasty startup first rounder?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think he's a perfect player for a contender. Now, a lot of contenders probably don't have the assets to give up in draft capital, but that doesn't mean, like a Quentin Johnson style trade that you and I did, that looking at a younger up-and-coming QB with some other stuff sprinkled in wouldn't be on the cards, or I can just hold him, and I don't really care if I, get the wins banked or the points banked this year, because I no longer own my first-round pick, which I think is the worry of when you're trying to increase your chance for the lottery. And he could be a QB that's on my list when I get those 27 picks in.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating one, because, as you say, if you're going to go pure pick for pick, it really does limit the pool in terms of which teams you can sell him to. I think that's pretty clear, because most of the contenders don't have much of what you're after from a picks point of view. But if you do look at, and without trying to give ideas to fellow competitors, but if you look at a Scoot that's got Drake May. Now, I don't know where Drake May sits versus Lamar, but if Drake has a bit of a down year and Lamar goes through the roof, there could be that type of trade-off.
Yeah, I don't know if Drake May after his season last year is a good comparison. I think Jackson Dart on Scoot's list is an interesting one in terms of he had his good rookie season. There's a lot of prospect. However, if he stinks at the start of this season or things don't pan out, how likely is Scoot going to ride that one out if he's desperate to contend this year? I think, it's those players that I think are interesting. Maybe they haven't had their proper breakout or their potential breakout yet. I think you could argue May's had his last year, but I'm just going through my list here for anyone listening and not on the YouTube, the League Down Under. Yeah, it's got Lamar, Stafford, Quentin Johnson, Gadsden, Likely, and then it just drops off a cliff, really, after that. I mean, I'm scrolling down a little bit here. Deebo Samuel, he hasn't got a team yet.
Juwan Jennings is a little bit interesting. There could be some value there for him, I think. You're hoping, for a bit of a miracle with old Brandon Ayuk, but he could land on Washington from all reports, and there could be some value there to be had. So I suppose it makes your life pretty easy in terms of what you're going to do. It feels to me like you can try and flip for as much value as you can possibly get for some aging wide receiver 2-3 types. Is that probably the plan going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I basically am just looking at age right now and someone who can help a contending list out. Matthew Stafford, Dallas got it. These type of players are going to give some value to someone. It's not to say that I expect the world for them or anything like that, but something would get it over the line if it's. I mean, Hod, you mentioned it before. If it works for both teams, then it makes sense. Otherwise, whatever. I'll have players age out. It's not been the first time players have aged out on my list, and it probably won't be the last. And
is it true, Ben, off the back of last week's pod, that under no circumstances would you trade Odell Beckham Jr. because you're such a Giants fan, and that's not how you get ahead in fantasy football? That's very similar to Coleman Ungai.
Yeah, well, so don't bother coming for my man OBJ, who's ended up back on my list after I cut him loose for a little bit there. And if you are watching, the jersey's been conveniently hung in the background until he signed with the Giants again. He's back up.
I've heard it all.
Yeah.
I've dead set heard it all, boys.
What's that?
One of the more savvy Dynasty players is pouring emotion into trade decisions. You've got to be kidding me. Hod, let's go to your team briefly while we've got it here. And by the way, we didn't actually touch on this, but Ben, you've got 8 tight ends on the roster. Hod, he's coming for your favourite position. I know you've got 9, but he's coming for you. Just letting you know. Is that something you've looked at?
No. Are there any of value? I suppose.
Well, are there any of yours that are of value, mate? It doesn't matter.
Tucker Kraft, I would argue.
Well, let's talk about Tucker Kraft, because in a similar vein to Lamar, what are your plans with him? He's clearly your number one asset at the moment, which isn't a great sentence to say when I say it out loud, but that's where we're at. What are your thoughts on Tucker and you got obviously high hopes for that tight end going forward?
Well, is Tucker, or AKA the king of yak and cheese, is what he's known as down at the Dingerland. But this is the tight end one overall. That's above your boy Brocky and McBride halfway during last year when he did his knee. So this guy's incredibly gifted. I think a focal point of a highly potent offense, and he's going to be a cornerstone of the Dingers rebuild. That's for sure. He'll be at the forefront of the rise again. So I would need to be blown away with a deal to get him off the roster. So he's here to stay. I'm not sure all my tight ends will be, but he's definitely mostly here to stay. Yeah. And
I like the direction you're going with your team, Hod, because it's clearly the worst team we've ever seen in the 6 years of EDL. And credit where credit's due, I think you pulled out a 60 in a playoff game. So the run started nice and early, and it probably helped Scoot get there at the end of the day. He had a first round bye in the end. But so there's some young pieces in the squad that I think have a chance to gain some value. There's no doubt about that. But overall, it's probably not a roster we need to dive too deep into, I suppose. But one thing I am interested in, and this is a little bit unrelated, but I know that you're very, very high on this draft coming up, and you've spoken openly and freely about the value of second rounders and maybe a little bit of buyer's remorse from that previous trade. But is there a trade involving a first round wide receiver from this year's draft in 2026, so the wide receivers that went off the board, would you move 2 of your 2027 seconds for one of those?
No.
Ooh,
that's
no.
that's not a market value decision. That is purely an executing on a strategy. I think if you look at the trades that I've been doing recently, like Jonathan Brooks and Adonai Mitchell, both players I'm pretty high on. So when Scoot came to me, I was like, oh, I think they could be worth a lot more. But the strategy right now is for me is to bring in assets that only accumulate value and they can't go down. So I think to answer your question, those 2027 seconds are accumulating every week that goes past. I do like probably Tyson and Tate more so than Lemon. I think they're incredibly talented and they could be worth a lot more than 2 seconds. But for me, it's not worth that risk of playing the roulette game at this point in the year. I just want to see those picks through. Not to say I'll pick all 10, the 5 firsts and 5 seconds. I've been known to flip high picks on draft day before. If we look at Scoot and I, it was Garrett Wilson for, I think it was Drake May a couple of years ago. So we'll see, but I'm very much going to hold these picks now until the draft.
Very, very interesting, because I thought maybe you'd like to diversify into some talent from this year and then majority next year, but I can see what you're trying to do because you're very, very high. Do you want to give the listeners, in all sincerity, a little bit of a rundown on your view of how the draft, if you had to predict how it looks at the end of the year, the types of players we're going to have in Dynasty Superflex come rookie draft season at the end of at this time next year?
Yeah, so I think when there's a quarterback heavy draft and we don't have to go too far back, when it was I think Caleb Williams draft, there was a number of back-to-back quarterbacks very early on. So there is currently 6 to 8 first-round grades on quarterbacks for next year, and all that's going to do is push the talent of the skill positions further down. That's why the late firsts and seconds are so valuable. Not to say now with the nil money in college that they'll all come out, but a lot of them will. But in saying that, there's 3 wide receivers that'll go in the first round. There is 3 running backs currently that'll go in the first round, and there's 2 tight ends that will go in the first round. I looked at it the other day and validated this across 3 different sites. there was 17 offensive players selected in the first round of next year's draft, which is only going to mean, like, it's not rocket science to work out how that translates into a rookie draft. So, and in saying that, like, sort of to go back to your question before, I do agree. I'm not going to hit on every pick, so I might not make every pick, but I'd rather make that decision when the asset's worth the most on the day or leading up to it, when everyone's realizing what I've been digging into for the last 12 months. And then also having the 28 capital, have that option too to move future assets for more proven players post-draft.
I love it. I'm intrigued to see how you go about it. I reckon a few league members have gone down this path, and you two boys will do a good job, I'm sure of it. But I look forward to seeing if there is a glut of QBs that consensus suggests they go early in Dynasty, how many of them you do take and how many of the picks you move and all those sorts of things. The mind games will be on, ladies and gents, so I look forward to it.
Well, if we're not learning from each other, what are we doing? So I have already learnt from Camo. I will be picking quarterbacks later if I were to manage to get a run on early picks. I'll leave them up for grabs because I think he regretted not leaving Mendoza there to
dangle.
See if there's any nibbles.
Tantalise.
Little dangle. Okay, well, Ben, if we go back to your roster briefly, who's someone that you think that you're pretty high on, that you think can gain value and maybe someone that you can flip mid-season to a potentially a contender?
Yeah, well, I mean, someone that I'm high on, I do... There's a few there. I like Aronde Gadsden. I think that there's a lot to like in that. What is he, 6'9", something like that. And he had a very good run. He had a good purple patch.
He's 69.
I don't know, six. I don't know.
Camo's
He's
trading
tall.
for him tomorrow night.
He tried to trade for him last year before the season started. But I let that just simmer away, and he's well and truly increased in value. But he's someone who I think could be a great player to flip if he has another good run like he did. And we spoke about McDaniels obviously going to that offense. He could be the beneficiary of that. I find like Brandon Ayuk's an interesting one. Like it's just such a weird player in that, like, you know, he's getting fines and warrants for his arrest because he's, you know, filming, giving the finger to the 49ers stadium as he's driving past in December. I don't know. It's just a weird situation. They're letting his contract run out, and then I don't know if any team will ever bother to pick him up.
He's the modern day. We should be calling him Antonio Ayuk.
Yeah,
because he is in a weird place right now, and I can't see how any team wants to take that on.
No. Yeah, no team's going to take that risk on. But he's still, I mean, he's 28 years old, and there is talent there. Just don't think he'll get the opportunity. And then, I mean, that's probably it.
What about CJ Daniels? In all sincerity, like we spoke about him being put in the deal. You obviously liked him. How did that all happen?
Yeah, he's a player that I was looking at in the fourth round. I had a few players that I wanted to take flyers on in the fourth round. And then I made a decision to let him run to waivers, and then I got a bit confident and thought no one else is looking at him and didn't bid that much. But Hod clearly was, so that annoyed me that he got him, and I was looking at him probably from the middle of the fourth. For the rest of it, I think it was really that Hod... What I regretted, actually, was doing the trade with you first, Keeney, because Hod and I had that other one lined up already. We just hadn't officially sent it. But once I held his third-round pick, Hod got itchy fingers and said, no, I want that one instead. So then we had to sort of negotiate that. But up until that point, I didn't hold his third-round pick. I had mine and Tim's, so... That probably, I mean, it would have got over the line, and then I could have done the trade with you. That was really the thinking. And I like CJ Daniels in terms of the upside, and going to that Rams offense. He's an older rookie as well. He's 24 years old. So there's just an upside play. I mean, pretty much at this point, anyone I'm getting, and Hod touched on it, anyone I'm getting onto my list, I'm just looking for them to increase in value. I don't want anyone who's got the potential to decrease in value. His is probably the lowest it's ever going to be. He'll either stay like that forever or he'll increase in value. And at that point, I make the decision to flip him. And that's pretty much going to be the tail of the tape.
Yep. And it's more enjoyable than you think. Hod, What about you? And by the way, I think we should, in case the listeners don't know, Hod has 10 first rounders and 9 second rounders over the next 3 years. So I think on our good friend's Dynasty Daddy, you're labelled as trust the process, and this is a very Philadelphia
Yeah.
type
Slogan
arrangement, isn't it?
I hate.
Yeah, you
only
hate.
because of the Sixers. But yeah, no. To answer your question, like there is the starting running back for the Seahawks. I said it when I got him. No, there's a
Sweet
bunch.
cheese.
Other than Tucker Craft, everyone is accessible, and they're not going to be very expensive. There's a lot of veterans there. Like we saw what Jacoby Brissett did last year, so I feel pretty confident in Tua is going to be running that offense, given that Penix's disappointing year and this knee injury that's lingering. If he runs with that role, I think he could be of value to a contender. It's not going to cost a lot either. What I was interested with Keeney in hindsight for our trading was I have one of the best handcuff running backs in the league who has proven to have standalone value. He ran for 1,000 yards in Bijan's rookie year in Atlanta, all the gear at the Cards, and you obviously have Jeremiah Love. So he is attainable now for a much lower price than if something happened. Braylon Allen, again, good solid handcuff there.
Who's got Brees Hall?
Yeah, well, that's no chance, is it?
No, but it should be. That's the trade that should happen.
Yeah, well, these handcuffs, they're only going to go up in value if an injury happens, so they're gettable right
But
now.
LG is interesting because they could trade him.
They could,
Yep.
absolutely. Who would they go? Who would he go to though?
I don't know.
I don't know if it's too
Pack,
late in the piece.
Josh Jacobs.
That's a great point.
Maybe, but even like someone like Kirk Cousins, maybe end of the year, if they're just sitting Mendoza all year and someone needs, like a Brissett with what Scoot did last year,
100%.
who knows?
That was a 3rd round pick. It'd be exactly the same. So there's just a few players like that, and then there's these players that are obviously my 2027 plays. So who knows what happens with Anthony Richardson, but I don't need him to do anything this year. It's more a chance for the following year. And same with Greg Dulcich. I think he could be a sneaky play for Miami this year that could appreciate in value. But my one that I'm most high on is he gave me an Eli Raridon when he was available in the in the 4th round. This is a tight end that a couple of trusted sources that I listened to that had him as their tight end 2. And it was only an injury to a knee in college that held him back. But this guy was a huge recruit going into college, and then still has the talent, bit of an athletic specimen. And he's going into the Patriots, who have Hunter Henry there on a 1-year deal, and then he'll be gone. So if Raridon proves anything in a rookie year, and he can block, which is the biggest thing for tight ends as a rookie, and he's a pretty talented pass catcher. So he's probably the deep sleeper that I'm happy to see just marinate there this year, show a little bit of promise. And then if they commit to him the following year, then I might be rolling out a few tight ends in the starting lineup in 2027.
And you stole my thunder a little bit there, but it wouldn't be a review pod with our man Hod if we didn't deep dive into Anthony Richardson and where he sits. Because 12 months ago, it was a Josh Allen comparison. Where's it currently sitting, mate? What are your hopes and prayers?
Yeah, look, we might be a bit far off Joshy, but no, he just needs to get off the Colts. That's all it is. I would be very surprised if he is still on the roster starting this season, because I think Riley Leonard proved in the game that I went to actually in Houston. He's got some talent there. He's a homegrown kid in Indiana, so he loves it. And Anthony Richardson needs to go to a great organization like the Packers did with Malik Willis, sit behind a quarterback for a year. And if he gets starts, great. If he doesn't, do another year as a backup, and then get a starting job somewhere else if a team deems that worthy. What I will highlight with him, he's still younger than your Bo Nixes of the world. He was incredibly young when he was drafted. The Colts, it was malpractice what they did to his career. So I've still got hope. Not as much hope as I once did, but he just needs to get off the roster and go to somewhere else.
Yep. No, it's pretty well summed up, and he's the type of player that's probably not worth moving, to be honest, for you. Like, you've almost got to see it through, because if he does sit behind someone and get, like we saw what Malik Willis went for, and that's Malik Willis. So if Richo actually gets a starting gig somewhere in 3 years' time, he's worth 2 firsts.
And you saw what the DFF did with Sammy Darnold. So just hold on to him, and he'll win a Super Bowl ring. If enough time passes.
He suits my timeline, and like you said, he's an athletic freak, and you just wait for Lenoris Sellers next year. He's an Anthony Richardson 2.0, 240 pounds, can sling the ball, accuracy issues, and you watch the hype for him when he comes out. Who knows, it might just rejuvenate Richardson's stock as well.
Lenoris Snozzleberry. Who is it?
Yeah. He's a pretty talented quarterback.
The old Debbie Dinger.
The Gamecocks is where he
call
is,
you Debbie Dinger.
Hey,
righto.
Let's move. We've looked at our Dynasty Daddy style review of our rosters. Let's now move to around the league. Who could you steal off someone else's roster if you had the choice to steal from another list? Who's it going to be?
Well, steal's the topical word because I'd have to with the owner of this player, but Justin Herbert is someone I'm incredibly high on for this year. I think he's at a dip. I think he's quarterback 9-ish in redraft, which I think is a great buy. I'm probably doing myself an injustice for our redraft auction coming up, but this is a guy that has all-world talent both in the air and on the ground, and now you add Mike McDaniel into the frame. He's got pass catches galore. He's got a running back room that's pretty solid, but then the biggest one is he gets his twin towers back, who he lost for all of last year in his 2 tackles, Slater and Alt. So I just think this could be the year where he really shines. He had that promising year early on in the career. I think this is where the potential comes back. And the Chargers have a very difficult season this year with just travelling and facing teams. So I think, although their defense is a little bit frisky, I think they're going to be in high-scoring games, and all that does is add value to all of their offensive players. And when they have so many weapons, you want the quarterback. So I think if I could steal him, which I'd have to, because Steph would ask for 10 firsts, I reckon, especially after this airs, he'd be my pick.
Well, I was going to ask you, mate, if we're going to be really realistic about it, and this isn't a platform just to air out trade ideas, but how many firsts would you be willing to give up in 2027 for Herbert?
Well, again, timeline and strategy, it's not going to happen, but hypothetical world, if I did, not going to happen. Because if it was one of you boys, it might be attainable because there's some realism, but it would probably cost 3 firsts, I reckon, to get him off the DFF's hands, yeah. But that's playing the man.
Yeah, that seems high, though.
Well, we can...
I mean, just what you think his value is, that's all.
His value would be 2.
Yeah, 2.
I think most of the top echelon quarterbacks, 227 first is the price. So, the DFF tax rate, I'd probably say 3 is the ask.
Yeah. And what about you, Ben? If you could rebuild with a player without having to use up any capital and steal someone, who are you looking at?
You mentioned emotion a little bit earlier, and I'm looking at this jersey behind me, and if I just covered that number there, just the number 1 for the Giants would look... it'd be pretty fun to have on the roster. Malik Neighbours, I think...
Would be.
And I kind of look at it that, he's obviously coming off that knee injury. There's a lot of speculation about the state of his knee. He got the extra scope done very late. There was all that footage of that kickball game where he was sort of moving quite gingerly around, and it's probably selling it short. But you can't argue with his talent in his rookie season, finished as the wide receiver 7 on the season, which is a pretty amazing thing to do. And he didn't have a QB really at the time. Like, that's now you throw someone like Jackson Dart in there, who does look pretty exciting. that would be fun to own a piece of. Now, obviously, you're taking the risk of what is the state of his knee. But yeah, I mean, they're sort of the players as well while you are looking to build up again. Someone who doesn't really have to hit the ground running this year or potentially next year, but has upside for years beyond. And he's a giant as well, so why not just add that to the mix?
Well, here's an interesting one for you, Benny. Full disclosure, I inquired about Malik Neighbours some time ago when I started tearing it down and accumulated a few firsts, not as much as I have now.
Yep.
Did try and get him off the roster for the same reason. I don't think Malik Neighbours will be at 100% at all this year, and I think he'll play half the games at the rate he's going. So that doesn't help one of the top contenders in Timos. So that's why I inquired, but couldn't get close to anything. So would you part with any of your first to ask the same question as Keeney did for me? Or is that something that you would entertain Lamar in a trade?
Ooh, spicy.
It is spicy. Yeah, I mean, you entertain it all, obviously. I think if it fits my 2-year window, and that's how I'm kind of looking at this, I'm looking at this in a 2-year span, will my team be better off as a result of that trade? Then, of course, it makes sense. So, yeah, I'm happy for Lamar to be on the table. It wouldn't just be a straight swap. There'd have to be a fair bit of figuring out there. And 27 first can be on the table too if Neighbours is on there too. I wouldn't go too crazy. Obviously, there is a bit of still heavy speculation on that knee and will he ever be the same again? But you're also trading, a top. I don't know what he's going for in startup drafts at the moment, but I'd imagine it would be pretty high. It doesn't matter. Ooh, the Rock got in on that one.
Doesn't matter what you think he's going.
Doesn't matter what I think. Yeah, no. So I don't know where he's going in startup drafts. I'd imagine it would be in the first 3 rounds. You got to say
first 2.
First 2, yeah. I mean, I don't know if the knee injury pushes it back anymore, but yeah, certainly he would be someone you'd have to pay a fair amount for sure.
I'll tone it down. Another one without notice. A 27 first and Matthew Stafford if Tim had it at quarterback injury for Malik Neighbours.
Which first?
Well, they're all late.
Yeah, no, they are. Yeah, definitely. That's absolutely on the cards. He would never do that though. So I'm not going to, a little bit like what you were saying with Steph, I don't think Timos would entertain a trade like that.
But what I'd say with that is, I think where you're going, Hod, is if Stafford, this is all very hypothetical, but if Stafford was to help him win a title or at least compete, is there a world where he can draft a similar style player to Neighbours at that pick, given how deep this draft is?
Yeah, absolutely. Will he look at it through that lens? I don't think so.
If he's sitting 11-2 and the trade deadline's there and Malik Neighbours is back, but he's half the capacity that he can be, and he's just lost a quarterback,
yeah,
he has to look at that.
Oh, it's got to intrigue him for sure. But I know how hard it was to sell him on aging running backs. So selling him on a 38-year-old QB is probably, but it would make sense for both teams. But anyway,
I like that, boys. That the pod has done 19 trades, and now we're manifesting a week 13 number. It's great stuff. Let's keep going, Betty.
Yep. No, you go. I think you're up. Oh no, I'm doing the.
No, you do.
All right. What's your best trade you've ever made in the league? Let's keep this rolling.
It has to be bringing the one and only Ram into existence was Puka Nakua. I was staring. I had him as my deep sleeper target in that rookie draft, and he was sitting there still at the 406, I believe it was, Keeney. And Keeney probably didn't do the research that I had done, it's fair to say. And he accepted the future third the next year, and I took, Puka at the 406, and I was jumping into contention at that point, and he well and truly jumped me up because that rookie year he was a wide receiver 1. And it was fascinating to watch week in, week out. This guy just got better and better. So that is definitely my best. And
in my defense, Hod, I'd had 15 beers and I was looking after Thais, who was on the snow globes. it was a tough night for me. And I think Scoot just took a blocking tight end 5 minutes previously. So I was up against it, so I just gave you the pick.
Scoot, no!
Oh, that is fantastic. Why don't
See you in a bit, Ben.
I'll roll off my worst as well.
Yeah,
Benny,
go
and
with
then
your worst.
You can take off with your best and worst. So I narrowed it down to, I think my deal with Papa would be my worst. And to remind everyone, it was Calvin Ridley and 2 future thirds for Nico Collins and a future first, second, and third. So that year I was contending for memory, and Ridley, he finished as the wide receiver 17. So he was 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. He was fine.
Was that Atlanta Ridley?
Yeah.
Or was that, yeah,
before
he went off the rails?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much that. It was I held Nico for as long as I did, and he didn't do anything, but he had promise, and then that season was the one that he launched. And so that's why the trade was so lopsided if you looked at it in hindsight a year later. And I got rid of Ridley that next off-season straight away. So I had him for 6 months and then saw Nico rise. So that would definitely be one of my worst if I can't narrow down another one.
Nice.
Right, Benjamin, over to you, mate. Best and worst for us.
All right, best trade. I got to throw this in as an honourable mention because when I was going through this, I saw it, and that was sending. I got a 2020 second third, which was yours, Keeney, from Camo, and he received KJ Hill, the punt returner for the Chargers, that basically never saw a snap in his career or saw very little offensive output. I actually forgot we did that trade. It was at your Bucks party, and I woke up the next. I don't even remember having the conversation, but I clearly was that many beers deep.
Yeah.
He was a Chargers player, and I must have twisted his arm at a moment of weakness and turned it into a third-round pick. Now, the good bloke in me could have just reversed the trade, but I thought, no, fair play. He'll enjoy KJ Hill. So there's my honourable mention. My best trade was, funnily enough, I received KJ Hill in this trade. I sent James Robinson, the running back for Jacksonville Jaguars in 2020. He was the free agent player who got very late in the startup draft, and he had a ridiculous season for the Jags. And I got Matty Max 21st, second, 22nd, first, and 22nd, second. So I got a first and 2 seconds out of it, and KJ Hill, who I flipped for a third. So that's easily got to be the best one. Matt was going all in on the contender first season mode. He got a little bit spooked. I think that he thought Scoot was probably after him, and thought, why not? I'll just throw my hat in the ring and go after. I think he was. He was a top 5 RB. Might have even been higher, top 3 RB or something that season. He was absolutely flying.
Was that year 1 again?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, because that again, it's a little bit like what the value of that first and second is in year 1.
Yeah.
It's probably changed a bit. We talked about that last week, but I think if we did that 5 years later, it's probably not getting that sort of capital. So you did well in hindsight, cashed in, and great trade.
Definitely. And then the worst, or the one that I probably sort of have the biggest regrets over, was I got Derrick Henry in, and you'd think that that's a pretty good trade, but I gave up Jalen Hurts and Jalen Rager as well, who was just, yeah, exactly. But Jalen Hurts, he had his first season with Philly. He was scoring decent from a fantasy point of view. However, the franchise weren't sold on him. They weren't winning particularly many games in his first season there. So there was a lot of talk about, all right, it's fine that he's killing it in fantasy because he can get points with his legs, but will he even be on the roster? So there was part of me that went, I got him basically as a throw-in deal, as Jake spoke about last week, flip him for a premium running back, and I was well and truly contending at that point. And then he happened to break out and be what he is now. So just thinking of what I could have flipped Jalen Hurts for, or what my roster would have looked like with, Lamar, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, that would have been a pretty nice QB room to have. But yeah, that's one that I regret. But hindsight plays a big part in that.
Them's the breaks, boys, and that's you win some, you lose some. But let's move on to just quickly. I think we've spoken about how good we are as trade partners. We know that our inboxes are always welcome and open. So anyone else listening, everyone knows that. So, but in terms of who you guys like dealing with from a trade sense, boys, do you want to reveal who's the best, who's the worst? Maybe that might be more exciting to talk about.
Oh, the worst is easily the DFF, because it's a one-way street. Unless he's interested in your player off the bat, if you inquire or put someone on his radar, like I said, there's a tax rate that just immediately applies, and it's incredibly difficult to even get a counter offer from that man. And as for the best, I honestly, I don't have a qualm with anyone in the league. I think providing if you throw the first offer out that works for them, I think most people are pretty reasonable. I didn't really understand, and it's probably Scoot in his facetious ways, I didn't really understand the slight around I'm very much a this is the price blanket rule, if you like. I'm certainly that with
Dictatorship.
I'm certainly that when it comes to if I'm giving away the best asset, I'm not going to let you move me off that. So I will continue to ask for more or be pretty steadfast in that's the price. But apart from that, I think everyone's pretty reasonable and easy to deal with. At least there's a two-way conversation with everyone else in the league, except the special one.
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, the fact that you can never pose a trade that he'll ever be on board with. There's a few people in the league who, when you are going through a trade negotiation, they have to have the last say. That's a little bit frustrating that it's a fair deal at the moment, but they have to counter to finish the trade-off. And so for that reason alone is why Camo is probably my best person to trade with. Because I think if he just looks at a trade and goes, yeah, that seems fair, he just hits accept. In fact, a lot of the time you're better off actually putting the trade in sleeper for Camo, because then the conversation back and forth doesn't even need to happen. He just basically hits accept if he thinks it's okay. So that's why I'd probably rate him the highest. And I'm trying to think if I've even traded with Manny. Oh, yeah, I did with the Kelsey trade, but it was a pretty similar process. He was like, yeah, that seems fair. Yeah, exactly. I've got other things to worry about.
I think you've just made a very good point,
so do I.
Ben, about, and I'm guilty of this, I've done it before. If you know that it's a good deal, you will put it straight in sleeper. I feel like if you are trying to work someone over, or you feel like,
send the screenshot,
or you engage in a text and you're trying to then work your point across. I think the best trades, and I did it with Keeney on the weekend. You did it with me, Ben, and Scoot sent me that one last week, where it's a fair trade straight off the bat, and it takes one counter and off you go.
Yeah. No, I thought you were going down the path of some people react differently to different approaches. So that the sleeper approach, some people really rate that way of going about things. I do screenshots normally because sometimes I feel like the sleeper approach is pretty aggressive. Like it's almost like this is the final offer.
Is it as aggressive as putting the hour shot clock on there?
Oh, well, that's the expiry of the bomb.
Yeah. And I'm walking away after an hour.
Okay, off you go. Yeah. But so there's that piece. But I've forgotten the other point I was going to make, so keep going. I can't remember.
All right, you quick. Let's go rapid fire because we hit the hour mark, and you basically have all the league questions now ready to roll. So let's go rapid fire.
I'll remember that question. It'll be really good. These are great questions because we ask everyone about these, and I'm really interested in both your thoughts. So the biggest pretender in the league this year, Hod.
For me, it is our reigning champ, and I think he's already come up in discussion. But the reason, I think one of our previous league members has thrown him out there, and I agree. And the reason being, I just think there's a bit of volatility in some of his top assets in terms of regression. It may be on the cards, and the most important, arguably, position in our fantasy football is wide receiver, and that's probably one of his weaknesses. But Drake May's a superstar. Jackson Dart is pretty solid, but I think it's still a lot of potential there we don't know, and then there's not a lot behind that. But then with the wide receivers, Luther Burden is the darling of the offseason, and I just don't know how Chicago can produce the likes of Rome, Burden, and Loveland at the rate that everyone thinks they're going to finish. They can't do it all as highly as what everyone reckons. And then Jamison Williams is highly volatile. Golden, Pearsall, they're all promising young players, but that could just come unstuck really quickly. And then Trey McBride...
Mate, he's got serious regression. Like, he's a star, Trey, but he's got regression coming. Like, he had 100%. The most routes run by a tight end by like 150. He had that many red zone targets. It'll just naturally come down, I think.
And that's with Jacoby Brissett, and the Cards will play Beck at some stage. So I do think there's regression. And Scoot also is well aware of that. He's pretty honest with that assessment, and I think he would agree. So pretty hard to say, the reigning champ, but just compared to how much better everyone got in the off-season and the rosters that are probably above him, that has to be my pick.
Yeah, you took my thunder a little bit there, but I'll go with a slight pivot and Pappas punishes. Sorry, mate, but I am looking at those contending teams. We've all agreed that Matt's list is going to be pretty hard to compete with, but I just think that that running back room that he's rocking has potential to struggle this year. JT had an all-time season last year. Regression certainly on the cards for him. Then you got Kyron Williams. Well, Blake Corum, based off his trade value, he's going to go through the roof. So look out there. Bucky Irving had an injury-riddled season last year. Can he return to sort of his rookie season? And then David Montgomery sitting as his fourth one there. So none of them, certainly from a redraft point of view, look to be world beaters. I mean, JT and Kyron's very nice, but you can see that potentially going south. So I don't know. I look at it's hard to split the contenders right now when you look at all of their lists. You know, Timos is another one that's interesting, but his QB room, and I mean, he's got some really strong players as well. So it's splitting hairs, to be honest. So I'll just lean slightly towards the Punishers.
And what about the full emotional rebuild? Who's one step away from being a Humdinger or a Park City Lion next year?
I don't know if I'll go that far, but if we're talking about emotional, there's no one more invested up the top than the bloke that you just mentioned in Papa.
Yeah.
And I think he rates himself incredibly highly. He rates his list even more. And if what Ben just talked about comes to fruition, there's not the picks there. It's going to be a pretty hard pill to swallow, that seeing his counterparts in the Prestige Worldwide, the straight cash home is Jake. He doesn't like Jake winning. So I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch if he can't pull it off this year for the first chip in his dynasty career.
Well, let's flip it round then, Hod, and I'll pick the Executioners as the emotional rebuild. I just think he came into our redraft league, he won that in the first season, he rocked up to the draft the next year and polished off 3 bottles of wine whilst drafting with his absolute hubris, valued his players and waited for them, and then had an absolute shit show of a season. So
that's right.
I could see him going into this season, like you mentioned, really valuing those up-and-coming players, them not panning out, and then him just blowing it up out of anger and frustration. So he's won the ring, so he's got the potential, like Camo has done, to just hit the hard reset.
Well, he was the 6th seed after all.
It's true.
It's not like he was flying, but credit to Scoot still. But one question that the listeners have been waiting an hour and 10 for me to get to, and this is one of the most important questions
Highly
of the
sought
night,
after.
and it's Hod. What is your lunch order? Everyone wants to know where the pipes are getting developed from.
It is a crispy pork banh mi every day.
I had that today.
I know every banh mi destination in Melbourne, so it's always been a favourite. Wash it down with a Coke Zero. Oofed.
What happened to Rockaby?
Yeah, I don't have dairy anymore. Haven't for a little while, so I unfortunately can't, but they are delicious.
He lactose.
Oh, yeah.
He lacks 10 toes.
Yes. Are you carrying on with the actual question for this one? So, do you want me to
Well,
get
I want
into
Ben's
the-
lunch order
Oh, you want
first.
my lunch order too?
Okay.
It went from Subway order to lunch order now, didn't it? So at the moment, I'd say my lunch order is, let's go with Toasted. It's a one of those gourmet toasted sandwich joints on Waverley Road. I go with the bird and brie, or I don't know, something like that. It's got chicken and brie cheese and a bit of cranberry sauce. It's chef's kiss.
That does sound good. No, but the honest question, boys, is the Monday morning routine. How do you guys go about it? Are you guys terrible watchers, or are you cool, calm, and collected?
So this is a two-sided answer for me. When I'm contending, I am very deliberate in getting up at 4:30 when it starts at 3, so half time.
Ooh.
And I will know, this is how much I've done it, I will know how good my team's going based on how many sleeper notifications I have in my phone. So when I had my 211 score, top 5 all time, I had 89 sleeper alerts waking up at half time, and I bounced out of bed like an Eli Raridon. And but on the other side, it can be very light, and I'd almost just roll back over.
I was gonna say, would you just hit the snooze and go back to bed if there's 6 notifications on the screen?
Definitely enjoy getting up at the start of the year for the games. I don't carry it right through. But as for now, what my routine will be, I will still get up probably, and probably more so, I enjoy the banter that goes on in the group. And about my contending piece as well, I very much know all of the players that I'm playing against too. So I'm very aware of, a bit like Manny style, maybe not that psychopathic, but very much aware. But I'll probably still be watching college highlights this year at 4 a.m. on a Monday morning.
What's his name? Snosberry Snitzelberry?
Yeah. Dingleberry.
Go, Ben.
Snoznits. Yeah, mine is the 4 a.m. start every single Monday, and I get a little bit disappointed when daylight savings hits and it moves eventually to the 5 a.m. The double daylight savings hit, because I like the 4 a.m. start. When it's 3 a.m., it's good because you're sort of getting in. It's around half time, and you see the end of those early slate games. When it moves to 4 a.m. is the starting time, then you're obviously seeing how your team starts off, and you just get to the end of those early slate games, or they're kind of on the fence when you have to head off to work. So I don't like when it moves to the 5 a.m. start, because then I'm in work mode at like peak fantasy time when shit's going down and like witching hour is taking place. I'm dealing with all sorts of nonsense that I don't want to be doing. I want to have the NFL on my screen, but I can't afford that. So yeah, mine's always the 4 a.m. start. It's the black coffee, plunger coffee with I've got the routine of grinding the beans, all that in the Park City Lions mug. And then I sit there and watch. I'm not a full tilt watcher. I don't sit and write down my opponent's players, but I do have a pretty good idea because I'm just constantly on the Sleeper app just watching. I don't have the Camo approach where I can just turn my phone off. I'm on my phone religiously whilst watching.
And how many times of the morning would you grind your beans?
Oh, well. Depends if it's a special occasion or not.
Plural.
All right.
Interesting.
Oh, shit. Okay, we're going to have one each here. So the Dingers, I want a franchise headline for your boys at the end of the season. What's it going to read? I'm going to give you that one, and Ben, you're getting the bold prediction.
My headline would be something along the lines of the Dingers crystal ball locks in the future. So I'm obviously playing a pretty heavy game of chess here, trying to piece together which teams are contending and which are not, and then what that translates to in lottery picks. So if I'm sitting pretty with 5 of the 6 at the end of the year, that would have been a pretty well executed plan.
Love it.
My bold prediction is that I sneak in to the playoffs. Hod's trade for my first round pick falls out of the lottery because Lamar Jackson goes the number 1 overall player. Chris Rodriguez turns out to be the starting running back for the
It's not
Jacksonville.
your pitch yet.
Well, yeah, true. Actually, sorry. No, that's for future listening. But yeah, there's a world where I go the 3 tight ends set in my starting lineup, and it does me wonders with Isaiah Likely, Gadsden, AJ Barner, Dallas Goddard. He misses out sometimes. So yeah, that would be my bold prediction, that I sneak into the playoffs miraculously, and then that trade for my first round pick is looking like a very nice deal.
Very bold.
Imagine that you couldn't squeeze old Goddard onto the field because you got too many good tight ends. Very, very enjoyable, boys. Good answers. Boys, I enjoyed it. I know we've gone for an hour 15, but it's been some real in-depth and exciting and knowledgeable conversation and something the league members hopefully can get behind and start to get their juices flowing again for some more trades. We know what the pod's done for the league, but the time has come, gents. The time has come for you guys to sell your team to the listeners. Who wants to go first? I think Hod is looking at me. He's ready.
Hod's got a pre-prepared script. I'm going to do it Manny style and just make it up as I go.
His
Off the
dinger
cuff.
is ready to roll. Off you go, mate.
The desk has risen. I've got 3 different sources of information here, so bear with me. But the Dingers, we are not building for empty applause in September. We're building for dominance when it matters. The Humdingers are the team that had the guts to tear it down, stockpile elite draft capital, and go hunting for a future contender instead of settling for mediocrity. If you seek the thrill, join us on this dynasty juggernaut roller coaster where there are no safety rails. Established in 2020, we are playoff tested, division tested, and final tested, and now hold more picks than Jameis Winston. I had a brain yo-yo as a kid, and now I have a yo-yo brain in dynasty. So whether we are on top or on the bottom, we go hard and give it our balls. I mean all. Get on the Dinger train.
Oh, Jesus, that started real slow, but shit, it did it. Did it?
Did it?
Brain yo-yo
so
getting a
better.
shout out. Holy, yeah, okay. That's going to be hard to compete with. Hey, can you, what I'm looking forward to for the Humdingers, can you walk the dog for us with your yo-yo tricks or
Around the world.
rock? Gotta jump on YouTube and watch that one. Okay, here's my sales pitch. So I haven't punched this into AI or anything like that, but if you want to come along for a ride with a GM that epitomizes his team and goes about actually growing his hair out to look like a lion and incarnate, then you can't get a more dedicated person to a dynasty league. Has started a podcast clearly with you 2 other Muppets here, has grown his hair out to look like a lion, has gone about it in a way where contending, not in the first season, but launched in years 2 and onwards, and currently holds a 72% win rate for anyone who wasn't aware. Highest scoring team in the league to date. Now, will that last forever? Maybe not this season. We'll see how it pans out unless my bold prediction takes place. But that sort of is the standard that has been set at the Park City Lions, and this is just because we're tearing down aspects of it. It doesn't mean that will last for a long time, as you can see by my 27 asset acquiry. So if you want to be in the box seat for the next tilt towards rings, now is the perfect time to get on board the Park City Lions, Kings of the Jungle.
Very natural, very passionate, very nicely done, Benjamin. Well done.
Thanks. I didn't know where I was going with that for most of
Did
it.
you sort of just roll with that?
Yeah, the only thing I had was my hair. That was about all I had going into it.
Excellent.
The rest, anyway. Well, that's an hour 19 is on the longer side, but to squeeze 2 teams in an hour 19,
Selfless.
I think it's a pretty impressive effort. Thanks for leading the ship too there, Keeney. Steering the ship? I don't know what that saying is.
Big shoes to fill when I'm somewhat steering the ship. And what have we got, boys? We've got 4 contenders Big
Yeah,
dog.
we
Let that be
move, we
clear.
move into the big dog
4
territory now, don't
big dogs left.
So, have we locked in who we've got lined up for next week? I mean, of the contenders, we've got Prestige Worldwide, we've got Straight Cash Homies, we've got Papa's Punishers, the Executioners. They are all on the line. Obviously, the Executioners are going to finish it off there, but have we locked in a McMahon, potentially?
Well, I think we need to either lock in a McMahon or do what every good commissioner does, and that's do a poll in Messenger.
Oh my God. Well, yeah. Is there any chance we could even land one of them to be in the same room? That seems to be a feat that is proving impossible. So we might also need to reach out to Timos now for 3 weeks' time if we do want to keep him in one spot. So by proxy, Papa, we've got you on the podcast next week, mate. Hope you're enjoying as you're listening to this at 6 a.m. on your drive.
Get on the socials.
Jump on the socials, absolutely. Instagram, the League Down Under. If you're on YouTube right now, I know we say, I mean, it's sort of superfluous if you're watching on YouTube and then throw the handle up because you're already here. So click the subscribe button. I think that's a thing you do on YouTube, and a bell, apparently. Leave a comment. All those sorts of things would be fantastic. I don't know what they do, but we'll respond if you comment. So there's that to look forward to there. So get on the socials, help out our YouTube page, get the algorithms boosted. But thanks for listening to another episode of the League Down Under. Look forward to speaking to everyone next week. Punishers, hopefully we'll see you there too.